Sweden's chief prosecutor has warned a district in the capital with a large immigrant population is becoming a, quote, war zone.
Rinkeby is almost like a war zone. When the police work there, they operate as if they were the army.
Migrants make up the vast majority of the Stockholm suburb of Rinkeby, with almost 90% first or second generation immigrants. The district has now been placed in Sweden's most severe category of urban areas with high crime rates. That's as riots and burnt cars are becoming increasingly common in the areas. But it's far from the only place developing a frightening reputation. The city of Uppsala, some 70 kilometers from Stockholm, has been plagued by months of shocking violence. Criminals have even been using hand grenades to target police stations. And firefighters now require military-style law enforcement support. And Sweden's third largest city, Malmö, has also witnessed a huge rise in crime. This year already, 59 shootings have left 7 people dead and dozens injured. Almost 80% of the local population say they live in fear, while over a third say they're afraid to even be alone on the streets at night. Meanwhile, armed police have been deployed to protect nighttime joggers.
3 people have been arrested after an attempted arson attack at a synagogue in the Swedish city of Gothenburg. Local media reported a community center adjacent to the synagogue was open for a youth event when around 20 masked men threw Molotov cocktails at the building. The young people were said to have huddled in the basement, and no injuries or damage to the synagogue were reported. The motive for the attack was not immediately clear, but it follows anti-Semitic incidents in other Swedish cities over the weekend in protest over the United States' controversial decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Security has reportedly been tightened outside synagogues across the capital, Stockholm, following the incident.
Now, anger at the U.S. president's decision has spilled over into the Dutch capital. A man with a Palestinian flag smashing windows at a Jewish restaurant in Amsterdam. Officers deployed pepper spray to arrest the suspect, who is a 29-year-old male living in the Netherlands.
Now for a look at the stories making headlines around the world, and we start with the aftermath of Washington's decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Protests against President Trump's move have been going on for a few days now and are even spreading to other countries outside of that region. For a closer look, let's turn to our Noah Adam. So Adam, just exactly how bad are things looking?
Well, Mark, there have been 4 days of street protests in the Palestinian territories, but they have died down a little bit. But in Jerusalem, a security guard was in critical condition after a Palestinian man from the West Bank stabbed him at the city's central bus station. The alleged assailant is said to be in custody, and it is not known if the attack was motivated by Trump's announcement. In Beirut, meanwhile, scores of Lebanese and Palestinian demonstrators clashed with security forces outside the heavily guarded U.S. embassy. Arab foreign ministers meeting in Cairo, where protests are also taking place, have demanded that the United States rescind its decision.
At the headquarters of the Arab League, foreign ministers rushed to announce a unified stance over Jerusalem. They stressed that the decision isolates the United States from the region and that there will be no peace without making the holy city a Palestinian capital.
We want peace, a strategic choice. It's the right of all nations in this region. But there will be no peace without a free, independent Palestine. There will be no peace without a free Jerusalem, a capital for the Palestinian state.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has pledged to fight to reverse the United States' recognition of Jerusalem as the Israeli capital. Erdogan has called a summit of Islamic countries in Istanbul this Wednesday. In a speech in central Turkey, he lashed out against Israel. Israel is a terrorist state. We won't leave Jerusalem to the mercy of a state that has no value other than occupation and plunder. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is currently in Europe. He met with French President Emmanuel Macron ahead of talks with EU foreign ministers in Brussels on Monday. Asked about Erdogan's harsh words, Netanyahu fired back.
I'm not used to receiving lectures about morality from a leader who bombs Kurdish villagers in his native Turkey, who jails journalists, who helps Iran go around international sanctions, and who helps terrorists, including in Gaza, kill innocent people. That is not the man who is going to lecture us.
A dangerous threat to peace is how French President Emmanuel Macron described recognition by the US of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Meeting with Israel's Prime Minister in Paris, Macron told Benjamin Netanyahu France was against the move, and he urged the Prime Minister to make gestures to the Palestinians to give peace a chance in the region. I've explained to Prime Minister Netanyahu my disapproval of the recent declarations made by the President of the United States that France considers contrary to international law and dangerous for peace. They don't seem to serve in the short term the need for security, including the security of Israel and Israelis. But Netanyahu was unbowed.
There is an effort continually in UN forums, in UNESCO and elsewhere, to deny the millennial connection of the Jewish people to Jerusalem. It's absurd. You can read it in a very fine book. It's called the Bible. You can read it after the Bible. You can hear it in the history of Jewish communities throughout our diaspora, next year in Jerusalem, next year in Jerusalem. Where else is the capital of Israel but in Jerusalem?
The Vatican on Sunday said Pope Francis is praying so that leaders of nations commit themselves to work to avert a new spiral of violence over Jerusalem, and is expressing sorrow for the clashes in recent days that have produced victims. In a statement, the Holy See recalled Francis's appeal last week for wisdom and prudence to prevail, and it reiterated its position, asserting that the essential need for respecting the status quo of Jerusalem. The Vatican statement said only a negotiated solution between Israelis and Palestinians can achieve stable and lasting peace, and guarantee the peaceful coexistence of two states within internationally recognized borders.
The Israeli army has just destroyed a Hamas terror tunnel extending from Gaza deep into Israeli territory. IDF officials believe this was an especially substantial project for the terror group and actually monitored it for a long period of time before demolishing it. This comes just a month and a half after the army destroyed a terror tunnel from Gaza, which killed 14 members of the Islamic Jihad terror group. Breakthrough new Israeli tech detected both that tunnel and this new one, which is why both Israel's defense minister and its intelligence minister now believe the era of tunnel threats may be coming to an end. The army maintains that there is no connection between the timing of this new demolition and the wave of Palestinian protests in light of President Trump's bombshell declaration on Jerusalem.
Tremors have been detected near North Korea's nuclear site. The movement is likely the result of aftershocks following the country's massive nuclear test in early September. They're probably relaxation events from the 6 nuclear tests, said an official from the U.S. Geological Survey. When you have a large nuclear test, it moves the Earth's crust around the area, and it takes a while for it to fully subside. Pyongyang said the September test was of an H-bomb. Experts have estimated the blast was about 10 times more powerful than the U.S. atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima in 1945.
On Sunday, Japan's Maritime Self-Defense Force said that the United States, Japan, and South Korea will hold 2 days of missile tracking drills starting on Monday. The United States and South Korea conducted large-scale military drills last week, which the North said made the outbreak of war, quote-unquote, an established fact. North Korea has continued to fire missiles over Japan as it pursues nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles in defiance of UN sanctions and international condemnation.
Now, China's Navy and Air Force carried out a large military exercise last week, seemingly in response to similar joint drills that were held by South Korea and the United States. According to reports, more than 40 Chinese warships recently conducted war games to test their anti-missile and emergency response capabilities. This follows an announcement by China's Air Force that it also flew aircraft near the Korean Peninsula over areas and routes they have never flown over before. Experts say this is a clear political message from Beijing that its military also stands ready amid recent joint drills by South Korea, the US, and Japan.
緊急で別の方向に脱出するドアがあります。もしドアを開けた時に膝よりも上には水が来ない設計で、織部製機製作所で核シェルターというものに関わってもう50年以上になります。今年になりましてからはその去年のシェルター、私どものシェルター部門の売り上げが38倍に伸びております。すぐ発注してるんですけども、スイスから届くのが間に合わない状態になっております。この外側を1200度で3時間熱したとしても、この中の温度は1度から3度ぐらいしか上がりません。箱は鉛を貼ってます。これで電磁パルスを防いで中の機器を守っております。
It's emerged that the bulk of funding for research to wipe out disease-spreading pests, such as malarial mosquitoes, comes from a US military agency. And the environmentalists who've traced where the money's been coming from are concerned that the technology being developed might get misused or even lead to an ecological disaster.
What's concerning about a gene drive is it's a genetically engineered organism that's designed to spread, and it will spread inexorably until it takes over an entire population. So that means you just have to release one single specimen of this organism, say a single mosquito or a single mouse, and then through sexual reproduction it spreads its trait until it takes over. There's a strong concern that you could use a gene drive system to spread a deleterious trait. You could, for example, try to cause a harvest to fail. Or there have been suggestions that you could genetically engineer a flying insect, such as mosquitoes, to potentially deliver something that's harmful and then spread that through a whole population of mosquitoes. If you have a military agency or a couple of military agencies in the driving seat of a technology that could be used as a very powerful carrier for a bioweapon, obviously the question comes up of whether it's going to have dual use.
Well, as you heard there, the main aim of the gene editing research is to modify species' DNA so that the desired changes then spread through the population. However, given the potential for abuse, the United Nations is considering a moratorium on the project. Emails obtained by the ETC group show that the US military has invested $100 million in the project so far. The US Defense Department's DARPA agency has 7 research groups on this at the moment, all working on the biological engineering. But many of its activities are believed to be kept under wraps in the interests of national security.
If you're driving north on I-25 near Montgomery, you'll see what already has so many people talking. A billboard that says, "Just skip church, it's all fake news," next to a nativity scene. Underneath it, "Happy Holidays from American Atheists."
Some people were calling me and just, "Pastor, did you see the billboard?" I go, "No, I haven't seen it."
Richard Mansfield, senior pastor at New Beginnings Church nearby, says the billboard has already offended some of his parishioners who've driven by it.
But I think that they're just trying to give a slap in the face to not only the Christian community, but people that have faith and people that have hope. And they're saying, "Yeah, right." Well, we say, "Yeah, he's right."
We reached out to American Atheists and asked if they meant the billboard to be offensive.
We want people to realize that we're starting a conversation by being a little bit funny and trying to be a little cheeky about it. And yeah, I mean, we do want to get a rise out of them, but the idea is not to be offensive.
Nick Fish, National Program Director for American Atheists, says the billboard's goal is to try and start a conversation by reminding people that there are millions of atheists in the country.
All hail to the guardians of Eastern light. watchtower.
And I'm the high priestess.
Blessed be the ancestors.
To be a witch is incredibly relevant in today's society.
I cast the circle hand to hand. We kind of work a magic together.
Nestled in the heart of the Hudson Valley is the Church of the Eternal Circle.
My plans purify you.
The only legally recognized Wiccan church in the state of New York.
Osiris.
We kind of follow the tradition of the craft of the wise. We are witches.
Where for the very first time, members invited CBS2 to attend their services.
My thoughts can heal.
Lisa Stewart and her husband Anton are the founders of the church.
There are definitely more of us than you think.
It's estimated as many as 1 million people identify as being a witch in the U.S., with 20% of that population to be in New York.
We have people who are professionals of all kinds,
including a librarian, a computer scientist, a nurse, and a homemaker.
Very normal people are part of this religion.
This is a somber celebration marking the start of winter. In the Wiccan Church, Samhain is known as the Night of Souls, when witches honor their ancestors. And magic is simply the belief you can make anything happen.
It's kind of like a prayer.
This Turkish university in this resort city on the Mediterranean coast is offering a new course called ufology and exopolitics to prepare for the possibility of extraterrestrial contact. Yep, with these guys. When people think of aliens, lots of options come to mind. The friendly ones, the scary ones, and especially the unknown.
So look at this. This is what we call a mothership.
Erhan Kolbashi is leading the new ufology course.
Well, it's important because something is looming on the horizon. Something big is coming, and we'll see the biggest change in the history of the world, I believe. There are signs everywhere.
The students range from 20-somethings to seniors.
So I'm a Muslim, so if you look to the Quran, as far as I know, it is written that God said, we have created many worlds. It means there isn't only one world, our world. It could be other worlds.
I believe that God provided life not just for us, but also for the many others, like extraterrestrials.
To others, it's a head-scratcher.
I don't believe that UFOs exist, but if I learn more about them at this course, this may change.
There's no shortage of naysayers.
It is quite problematic to open a course based on an unscientific activity. I think it will hurt the credibility of Akdeniz University.
Kolbashi has heard it all before.
We got used to being called like nutcase. There are some negative reactions from the more conventional-minded people. This is quite natural.
Now you may be wondering, why teach the course here at Antalya's Akdeniz University? Kolbashi claims Turkey is a hotspot for UFO sightings, in fact top 5 in the world, and he believes the first human contact will happen within 10 to 15 years. I guess you could say we've been warned.
An amber weather warning has been issued across large parts of the UK after the worst snowstorms in years. Flights were suspended at Birmingham, London, Stansted, and Luton airports while runways were cleared. Trains were cancelled, roads closed, and some motorways almost ground to a halt due to the icy conditions. The Met Office warns any kind of travel is likely to be disrupted. Even a ferry briefly ran aground in the French port of Calais due to the high winds. Nearly 30 centimeters of snow fell on Senny Bridge in Wales and 12 centimeters just outside London. People are being urged not to take their car unless absolutely necessary. It's not all bad news for everyone, though. And some are discovering fun alternative transportation modes.
You could smile. We begin with that threat on both sides of the country tonight. Fire in the west and icy weather in the east. The new threat from that California wildfire in a moment. But first, The South reeling from those record-breaking snowfalls that had Georgia drivers navigating unplowed roads. Down power lines from Mississippi to Maine, thousands of customers in the dark. Icy roads causing accidents. This SUV, you see it there in Massachusetts, ending up on its side. And take a look at the lake effect wide out in Buffalo. The Bills and the Colts nearly playing blind. And behind all of this, a big chill is now on the way for a huge stretch of the country. ABC senior meteorologist Rob Marciano starts us off.
Tonight, more than 100 million Americans feeling the effects of this winter blast. Lake effect snow falling from Indiana to New York. Thunder snow startling West Seneca. 3 miles south, this scene, the Bills-Colts game. Snow falling up to 2 inches per hour, so thick at times you can barely see the field. Indiana drivers dealing with whiteout conditions. Slick roads causing hundreds of crashes in the Northeast this weekend. In Connecticut, a jackknife tractor-trailer slowing traffic to a crawl. This driver careening in an icy pond outside Boston, swimming to safety through frigid waters. Tonight, the usually mild South still reeling. At the height of the winter storm, almost 300,000 without power.
These trees popping all over and never know when one's going to pop near us.
Crews now working to get everyone back online.
We want to get them warm, get the electricity back going.
But one major school district outside Atlanta still in the dark and closed Monday.
A photo of a little girl praying with a group of police officers has been touching hearts around the country.
I always pray for people because, and police officers, because I know they have a rough time sometimes, and sometimes a little prayer could make someone's day. So I decided to do that just in case they were having a rough day.
8-year-old Paige Vasquez says when she saw the officers eating at a restaurant in San Antonio, Texas, she wanted to offer them a blessing. The moment was shared on Facebook.
I asked them, hello officers, may I please pray for y'all? And they said, yeah, sure. They seemed like surprised. And I asked them and they were like, sure. So I guess they were confused and surprised at the same time.
But the officers were moved by the act of kindness. They were still mourning the loss of a fellow officer, Miguel Moreno, who was shot and killed in the line of duty last month.
Actually, one of the mothers of the officers that was sitting at the table actually messaged me recently right now, maybe about an hour ago on Facebook. And she said that her son went home and he was very moved by what she said. And he couldn't get over it.
Paige says she isn't shy about asking someone if she can pray with them because it just might be exactly what they need at that moment.
You should always pray for someone no matter what. Even don't be afraid to talk about Jesus because it might just brighten someone's day and someone might do it to you too.